Hey guys, real quick before class starts, just a quick note that I forgot to mention is that it could be useful to have a pillow or a blanket for this class. We do have some poses that are going to be in a kneeling position, and it can be a little bit painful for those people with really sensitive knees. So just a quick note to let you guys know about that. Okay, thanks. Hi everybody. Namaste and welcome to this Yin Yoga practice. I hope you guys are ready for a very deeply relaxing and deeply releasing yoga practice. I'm excited to be filming actually inside of my RV today because this is going to be where I'm going to film some of my live classes from as we are going to be on the road and traveling for the next couple months. So finding a tall seat here, just easy seated pose. Make sure that the spine is straight up as if someone was pulling a piece of string out of the top of your head. Bring the palms to those kneecaps and bring the eyes to close. Let's take one deep, huge cleansing inhale and exhale. Just start to arrive here on the mat, bringing your awareness closer and closer to your internal world. If Yin Yoga is a newer practice to you, remember it's not like a lot of power yoga or vinyasa flow or very athletic style classes. This is a highly meditative and stress releasing practice. Poses are held for long periods of time in very deep stretching positions. And we use the stretching sensation of the pose as well as the breath to root us into meditation while we're holding these poses. Let's begin today with some 3-count breath work. So inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. When we inhale through the nose, we're going to inhale in 3 parts. We're going to fill the low belly first. Then we're going to draw more air in and fill the mid belly. And then we're going to draw even more air in and fill all the way up to the top of the chest space. And then we'll let it all out through the mouth for a count of 6. So it's going to be a little like this. Join me now. We'll do 2 more rounds, filling the lungs just as full as you can. Keeping the eyes closed. We're going to continue with some neck rolls here, just the front sphere of the body. So we'll roll the right ear to the right shoulder, and then roll so the left ear comes to the left shoulder. Just staying in half circles in the front plane of the body. We'll inhale in one direction, exhale in the other. Inhaling in one direction, exhaling as we roll the neck to the other. Continuing with your own breath. Drawing the awareness even more inward. Outline the shape of your mat in your mind's eye. This is your space here. only space you need to be concerned with for the next half hour. On your next inhale, we can bring the neck back to neutral, spine up and high. And in your own way, you can either roll over the shins or move through all fours, and we'll come into child's pose. Setting up in child's pose here, the knees come to the outer edges of the mat, but the toes touch, and we press those sits bones back towards the heels. The arms extend forward, fingers wide. Forehead comes to rest on the mat. Connect with the breath here. So just a few more words about Yin Yoga. We'll be observing 3 principles through this practice. And just because the practice is slow does not always mean that it's easy. There'll be many times that the poses are quite intense and we're being asked to stay through discomfort. But remember, there's a line between discomfort and pain. It's your responsibility to back out of the pose should any pain occur. A little discomfort is okay. Any sharp stabbing or pain is not good. So the first principle is finding that edge for yourself. My advice is to start in the pose at about 70% and then let your body naturally soften the edge towards 100% over time. Each pose will be held between 3 to 5 minutes, so think about longevity. The second principle is, of course, that we commit to stillness and staying in the pose. Sometimes it's hard to do that, especially when the mind wanders. And then the third principle is we're using the breath to deepen into the pose and root us into meditation. We're combining breath and stillness and the sensation of the pose to anchor us into a deeply meditative state. So taking a deep side stretch through child pose here, walk the hands up towards the left corner of your mat, over to the left, and see if it's possible for you to get your right palm on top of your left palm, opening up into a very deep stretch in the right side body. Press your right sits bone back to your heel and sink into silence here. On your next inhale, slowly and methodically walk the hands back towards center and then continue walking them over to the top right corner of your mat, seeing if you can reach the right palm to come on top, seeing if you can reach the left palm to come on top of the right, and then sink back, pressing that left hip back towards the heel. We're inviting the body to open, but remember we're starting at only about a 70% effort letting time and gravity gently sink our edge a little bit further towards 100 as we commit to the pose longer and longer. Inhaling, we'll gently walk the arms back to center, and then we'll actually come up to an all fours position as we're going to transition here into pigeon pose, or as it's called in Yin, it's actually going to be sleeping swan. So from an all fours, we're going to bring the right leg forward and cross it across the body. So bringing the right shin kind of parallel to the top of the mat if you can. And you'll need to slide around a good bit to position yourself here. So the left leg, the toes are untucked. The quad is down against the mat. And we're looking for a deep stretch in the right hip here. This is an external rotation of the hip. Now, see if you can root evenly through the weight of both sits bones. If this pose is already in your practice, you can go ahead and come into sleeping swan by extending the arms and the forearms in front of you and letting the head drop and sinking into your slumber for this pose. If it's for you, or perhaps the hip opening is a bit too intense for you, I'm going to invite you to take a very different variation. So, if swan works for you, stay exactly where you are. If you'd like to try a different variation of the pose, you're just going to simply come down on the back, cross the right ankle on top of the left knee in a reclined figure four, and then interlace the fingers behind the left thigh, pulling it towards you, finding your perfect hip opener. So wherever you are, find a place that you can hold, find your edge, and we'll be here for 4 minutes. As we hold this pose for several minutes, I'd like to offer a gentle reminder about the breath and how important it is to help root us in this meditative state in the present moment. The breath is our guide. If the breath becomes painful or choppy, we know that we've gone far past our edge and we need to back out of the pose. The breath also provides us a rhythm to sink into, to keep us right here where we are in the present moment. The breath also offers us just as ever so slightly movement and deepening in the pose. Even though we're holding in stillness, each inhale brings fresh oxygen to all the cells, and the exhale, you'll notice a slight sinking and deepening in the pose on each exhale. So, disciplining the mind can be hard sometimes. When the mind fights to go elsewhere, just gently bring it back to the breath. Slowly and with intention, we'll start to come out of the pose. If you took the variation on your back, you can stay on your back and just switch legs. If you were in sleeping swan, come on up high with the chest high and proud again. And then we're going to roll onto the outer edge of the right hip and then just swing that left leg around and in front. And then we're going to switch, sending the right hip back behind us. And we might need to just set up and move around a little bit. So take your time with the transition, getting into the posture. There we go. Once you've found your space, remember that the right foot is untucked. The top of the right leg is flat to the mat. And try to have both hips going forward, not off to the side. And whether you're lying on your back in a figure four or in sleeping swan, remember our edge, our breath, and the stillness as we sink into this pose for about 4 minutes here. See if you can stay present just for the next few minutes. We're here in this pose for just a few more conscious moments, and I'd like to invite you to just take a quick mental inventory of how this pose has changed for you physically over time. Has it softened? Do you now feel it in a different place in the hip socket that maybe wasn't accessible before? Just taking your own inventory. Now I invite you to gently transition out of the pose. Wherever you were, take your time. Feel free to take a couple stretches if you want, maybe a down dog. That just felt right for me, but you do you, and we'll meet in all fours. Great work, yogis. Okay, so from all fours, I'm just checking my camera to make sure we're still good to go. All right, so from all fours, we're just gonna rise up to a kneeling position. Checking alignment here, just making sure that the knees are hips width distance apart. The hips are on top of the knees, the shoulders are on top of the hips. Just one straight line here. We can go ahead and tuck the toes under. We're gonna move into a half camel variation, or if you safely have full camel in your practice, you're welcome to take that now. Starting with the hands behind the back, we'll bring the butt of the hands to the high butt and really invite those elbows in towards each other. Maybe you're here and you're just opening the heart, pressing the heart space up towards the sky, bending at the bra line, not the low back. Or maybe you can turn so that the fingers are now pointing upwards, pressing that heart up. Or maybe you can release the left hand down to grab the left heel, pressing that heart up high, and we can reach backwards with the right hand. Just a quick side note, this pose is technically a yin pose, but it can be a little more energetic or yang in nature. So we're just gonna hold it for about a minute. And it's your choice to just come back to here anytime that you want to, whenever you're done in this pose. We're hoping to have a beautiful opening of the heart, as well as maybe some stretch into the psoas and hip flexors. Wherever you are, gently come out of the pose, bringing the palms back to heart center. We're going to untuck both of the toes so that the feet are now flat, back on the mat. Bringing the hands to the hips, we're going to step the right leg forward, and we're actually going to straighten the right leg completely, coming onto the heel of the right foot. So I've got a straight leg here. Hips are both facing the same direction. And then we're just going to fold over that front leg with a flat back. Now, this is where yoga blocks can be helpful if you have them. Not necessary, of course, but right leg is straight, left hip is directly over top of that left knee, Hinging at the waist with the flat back, suck in the low belly, just bring it downwards. If the hands don't reach all the way to the ground, prop up your blocks and sink into this. We're gonna hold this for about 3 minutes here. If full split is in your practice, or you want to move closer to that over time, as we hold here, feel free to do so. Respecting the edges is always important, particularly with a muscle like the hamstring. Very gently now, bringing the spine back up tall. We could bend into that right knee and then return the right knee to meet the left. Great work. Take a deep inhale with your arms up high, and then exhale, clasp the arms behind the back. Pull down, open that heart space. This is actually a great pose to stay in if you don't want to take camel on the other side. Just offering some options. If you liked camel, we're going to set up for that again on the opposite side. So checking once more that the knees or hips width distance apart. We're going to tuck those toes under. Maybe you're here. Maybe you flip the hands so that the fingers are facing up the back, opening the heart to the sky. Or maybe you reach down and grab your right heel. Let the left arm float backwards. The tendency is to twist to the right side though, so just keep the hips, the headlights of the hips pointing in the one direction. Pressing the heart up, bending from the bra line up the low back. Slowly coming back to a small, tall spine, hands at heart center, and tucking both toes. Bringing the hands to the hips, we'll set up for half split on the left side. Left leg extends long and straight. Hinging with the flat back. We'll bend over that left leg. Using the blocks if we need to. Honestly, using the blocks sometimes is just more comfortable because we're holding the pose for a long time. It's not necessarily always a sign that you need them, which is fine if you do, but I just encourage the use of props since we're going to be here for the next 4 minutes. Let's sink in, yogis. Find that edge, the safe edge for you. Bring the body to stillness. Use the breath to anchor you in the pose and this meditation. If the mind has wondered which it will do, anchor it back here with the sensation of the stretch and the rhythm of your breath. On your next inhale, we'll slowly transition out of this pose, using the hands to support you, bringing the left knee back towards the right. We'll come back to all fours and we'll sink into child's pose. Connect the forehead to the mat. Connect the mind to the breath. And so moving into our final pose before Shavasana, we're going to move into tadpole, which is like a beginner version of frog. So from child's pose, we're actually going to seek to widen the knees until we're feeling into that groin. So we can keep the arms extended long, and we're just widening the knees till we get a groin stretch. Now you may feel it at different parts. Perhaps you already feel it where you were in child's pose. Just stay there. Now, if you have frog in your practice, you can start moving the feet apart from each other as well to get that deeper groin stretch. But this one's a real sensitive one, guys. The benefits are great, but going past your edge in this one, you can really pull something. So I'm asking you to just be really respectful of that. Connect with the breath, and we'll be here for about 3 minutes. We're going to be here for just about 5 more rounds of breath. Very gently coming out of the pose, pressing back up, coming through all fours. Move slowly. That's an intense one, like we said. We're going to come on down to the back and set up for Shavasana. Shavasana is our final resting pose. We'll be sinking into stillness here. So I invite you to come all the way down to the back. Let the palms be up towards the sides, about 45 degrees out from each other. Bring the eyes to close naturally. If you have a lot of curvature in the lumbar spine like me, you can bring the knees bent, bring the feet to the outer edges of the mat, and then let the knees fall together like a tent. This will flatten the sacrum to the floor. Let it go. Take some cleansing breaths. Feel the weight of the body sink into the mat. Feel gravity work, all the organs sinking downwards. And now for just a few minutes, we'll sink into a silent meditation. Silent meditation is the best because it allows us to practice the work of meditation on our own. So the simple instruction for any meditation is to bring the mind to a central focal point. In this case, it's our breath and the sensations of the body. Whenever the mind wanders, we simply congratulate ourselves for noticing, and then go back to being a steady observer of the breath and the body sensations. We'll be here for just a few minutes. So as my camera has just stopped working here right at the very end of class, I invite you to stay in Shavasana for as long as you might need. Otherwise, feel free to join me in carrying on with your day. I want to thank you for practicing with me, and I bid you namaste. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.